Commissioners, staff, and guests, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we move into public comment, we do need to amend our agenda. After the ARPA funds round 2 discussion, the chair would entertain a motion to add the agenda going into closed session in accordance with Public Act 267 of 1976, subsection 15.268, section 8D, to consider the purchase of real property.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
The motion to amend the agenda is made by Gibson, supported by Smelker. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The agenda is amended. Limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes.
My name is Patricia Rail. I'm with the Village of Middleville, and I wanted to address you regarding the ARPA funds in round 2. I think you guys had a fine evaluation process. The Village of Middleville knew about the application, and we could have chosen to apply at that time. We would like to apply at the next round. We have a need that we identified for the replacement or repair of our railroad bridges that are on the Thornapple Trail that cross the Thornapple River. And this is something that would benefit the county as a whole, because we have a lot of people who come into our community to to take advantage of the recreation. And I think if you wanted to repeat the process that you used in the past, that would be perfectly fine. And if you choose to do something different, I would just say please make sure that it's publicly widely known. And that's all I have for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Hello, Charles Hertzler, City of Hastings. How are we doing today? First, I'd like to, if this is true that the public gets to comment on agenda items, I would like to go on record. I'd like to talk about with Michael Brown's number 3 and with Vivian Connor about the new rules, if that's possible. I understand it is, but that the public gets to speak on agenda items, but I don't know for sure. Otherwise, I guess I really don't have much more to say. I kind of wanted to talk about the blue zones and stuff, but I want some more information before I actually conquer that beast or go after it. So, but if I can do that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Eldon Schellenbarger, Hastings. I'd like to let you guys know, every time the government or everything changes the rules for the public or the citizens, all you guys are doing is putting a noose with a knot in it around their neck. You guys want to run it like a Gestapo, and in that case, look at the issue going on with Russia right now, with Putin, communist leader. You guys, when you work on these rules, every part of government, to tighten the rules, to restrict the public, you remind me of Putin, a communist leader and a communist ruler. And it really disturbs me to think how much you guys are limiting the public comment. And this just isn't with this board, it's with every board. Once they get that power and they get that greed, they want to limit the public. They want to limit the public to express their views and express their viewpoints. And I see with the board rules and the board changes, that's what you're doing. I remember when I started with this Robert Rules of Order. I remember when it was a thin booklet like this. Now it looks like a novel. And you guys want to change the rules and laws, you want to do it so you don't have to hear from the public. You got to remember, the public put you in office. You're supposed to do as they ask you to do. And if we can't get decent people without trying to put a noose around the citizen's neck, it's done.
I will remind those offering public comment to keep it civil, and the image of noose around necks is probably not the best illusion you can use. So I will let you continue, Eldon.
Well, you know what? If you can't, if that's the only way I can put it to people so they get simple, common sense understanding. And if you guys can't accept that, then I guess you guys are the one that's got the problem. Thank you.
Is there further public comment?
Morning, Gary White, Village of Nashville, past president. I was also one that brought in the agreement to refinance the sewer bond back in the 90s when the Village of Nashville refinanced.
Hold on a second, Gary. Is this mic on?
Hello?
You just
Can you
need
hear?
to pull it close to you, and
All right.
it does need to be quite close, but yeah. it should
Okay.
be on.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, Gary White, Village of Nashville, past village president. I was the one that brought the refinance of the sewer bond in there. The reason I bring that up, it's the responsibilities of the entities to upkeep their systems. We also have a water system out in the Village of Nashville. I pay a water bill. I've been paying it for almost 34 years now. It includes water capital improvement funds, a debt repayment, a base rate. If you're going to have one, you got to maintain it. I read your terms of an ARPA agreement, and I don't see in there where you have in the agreement that the county demands maintenance funding plan for the future. If you're going to give these funds away to water towers and they don't have a plan to upkeep them, you're wasting taxpayer dollars, aren't you? They already have a problem. 33 hydrants that can't be used, and they've been in the ground for 20 years. I understand there's a need there, but they got to prove in your agreement that they can fund the financing of maintenance on them. You don't give somebody a brand new Cadillac that can't do oil changes on it and expect it to be around. So in your agreement, please put that in there, that they show their plan and it's funded, that they can maintain the systems you're going to give them. The new facility out there, that's your, I guess I want to know, is it self-funded? Is it taxpayer funded? Is it going to create revenues and generate revenues to pay for the debt of building it? Is it going to pay for the employees? Is it going to pay for the maintenance? Did we have the opportunity to fix Thornapple Manor's employment problem before we built that? Is there really, there's a staffing issue out there? You grew government, and I'm concerned about that. Round 2 is coming up. You've been asked numerous times with no answer, what is your hurry? You have till the end of 2024, and while you haven't answered questions on the first round, you're still going to fund these things, and now you want to, in the spring, I guess the spring starts, what, the 21st of March? Start the second round. What is your hurry? You've been asked that numerous times. Will you ask yourselves that and answer it in the public when you start discussing round 2? I don't see the hurry. You haven't funded county departments that had requests. Public comment. People come up here and they feel they've wasted their time if they come in here. Your new rules are not appropriate. I'll talk later on about the jail village.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Good morning, Adam Heikela. Yeah, the items up here. So, to echo some of what Eldon was saying, and what Gary was saying as far as the changes to minutes and or speaking time or any of those controls, I think you guys have heard me say it repeatedly now, like many, many times. that they're exactly right. In changing and controlling and increasing regulations, you're increasing the discouragement of public comment time. That's completely opposite of what the board is supposed to be doing. When it comes to these ARPA funds, why are you guys doing it? Well, we know. You guys know. Ben's been around for a long time here, right? You know that these funds aren't actually going to be here forever, right? They say, oh, we're going to have these around, they're going to be accessible for this long time, but the way the federal government works, we know, tomorrow something could change, right? We have a world war that they're pushing that's happening now. So guess what? Those funds could be cut off at any time because now those funds aren't accessible. We got to have those funds go to something else, right? So we got to spend, right? Instead of actually doing the right things, like we've said, taking the time, like we said. But we know, I know that's in some of the people's minds, because that's how things have gone. If we look at history, how things have happened. They give these things out there and they say they're going to have it. And if you guys don't act on it, you lose that opportunity. And that's what all the people that have been in these positions now that come to you. Because again, all the people that have come to you at these meetings that have been supporting of things, you had maybe one or two, maybe, that didn't sit on a board that had some sort of benefit for their project and their community and had some sort of tie to it specifically. You haven't had a huge influx of people outside of those groups that are going to benefit from these funds, that are begging you for things. But you do have people that are outside of all of those groups telling you, hey, red flag. But you guys just want to keep going, and now you want to go on round two. So hopefully that's part of the major discussion here today, is that, we're going to sit on this a little bit maybe now? Or is it just going to be, hey, this is what these people want, now we're going to vote these things in and make sure we get this money right away? We see the pattern. We're going to explain the pattern to those that don't see it. I'm going to continue doing it. So, we'll see you in the next round.
Is there further public comment? Hearing none, we'll move ahead.
Wait a minute.
What, Dan?
I'll keep mine pretty short. I handed around an application that Berry County Parks will be sending out later today, tomorrow, to the local units of government, township, villages, and of course the City of Hastings. I'm sharing it with you. It'll be available electronically to all those individuals, but I'm sharing it with you so that as you go out and as a part of your duties and meet with the local officials, if you'll share with them that the application process has opened up. We'll be accepting applications through the program until the first part of June, so it should give a number of the local units an opportunity to submit an application. Again, this year it's $15,000 is available to all the local units. We had to go look back over the last 5 years in terms of impacting parks and recreation in the local communities. It's about $61,000 over the last 5 years. So, the great thing about this program, and I would say our Parks Commission is really involved in it and loves to see it, because it is actually putting the opportunities back to where it impacts our citizens the most, which is right where they live. So last year's projects were Woodland, Yankee Springs, and the village of Middleville. The year prior to that was Prairieville Township, Berry Township, and I don't remember who the third one was, maybe the village of Freeport. But so you can see, I think the Parks Commission is conscientious about trying to spread that around. We would love to see something down in the southeast part of the county, Commissioner Campbell. That's the one area where we continue to need to make some inroads. And I know in particular down in Johnstown, with the school closing there at Pleasant View, that really limited the opportunities for particularly young families with kids to go to a playground or have an activity to do. The churches have tried to step in down in that area, and we certainly appreciate and recognize that. But again, it's open for all the local units of government, and if you have any questions or any of the local units have any questions, please put them in contact with me. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Hearing none, we'll move ahead. This time we will interview applicants to the Conservation Easement Board. Larry Neal is not here today, but we do have Emily Wilkie. You want to come up?
My resume. I don't know if you'd like a copy of my resume.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Thank you. So, Emily, we're going to give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and share your background and why you think you'd be a good fit for the Conservation Easement Board.
Yeah. So, yes, I'm Emily Wilkie, and my family and I live in Prairieville Township, and I have an undergrad and then master's in natural resource protection, and I've been working for the last 15 years with the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy, helping them conserve land throughout the 9 counties of Southwest Michigan. So I've helped them conserve over 7,000 acres and bring in over, I can't remember how many millions of grant funds, but so I have a lot of experience in land conservation and working with local governments and partners, and I am phasing out of my employment at the Land Conservancy, so I'm going to have a little bit more time on my hands, and I'd like to still help the county and land conservation and move that forward. So,
Great.
Yes.
So, with your background, why is agriculture preservation important? Or why is it a worthy endeavor?
Right. So setting aside farmland and making it, and conserving it, and it's also making it more affordable for the next generation to continue to farm, and that is very important to have it available and potentially more affordable, and to continue farming for food availability. Which in this county there's a lot of agricultural land, but you see in other counties where it's really getting pinched, and then they're having to source their food outside and animal feed, so it's very important.
Great. We're going to open up to questions or comments from commissioners. We're going to start with Commissioner Campbell.
Just curious if you've served on other boards besides the one you're attempting to.
Yes. I currently serve on the Gull Lake Community Schools Foundation Board. I also serve on the 4 Townships Water Resources Council Board currently. I have in the past served on the Berry County Parks and Rec Board back in 2006, 2007, and I've served on the Prairieville Township Parks and Rec Board.
Yeah, I'm on that Conservation Easement Board. It sounds like you'd be a very good fit.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go Commissioner Jackson and then Commissioner Connor.
Good morning, Emily. I don't have any questions for you. I've read your application and your resume. It's impressive with your work you've done in conservation and easement. Familiar with the Land Conservancy and some of the things they're doing in the area, so that's fantastic. I think you'd be a great addition to the board. Thank you for your application.
Thank you for applying, Emily. Quite an impressive resume. On the 6.5 and the grant funding, were those grant applications through other governments or?
There was multiple different entities. So 2 of the larger grants were actually government entities, and one was the DNR that helped purchase the Shonaboom parcel, which is up by the Berry State Game Area. There was another in Casco Township, Allegan County, that helped purchase a property along Lake Michigan, but I was involved in both of those application processes and the main contact with the landowners. There was other federal grants that funneled through the DNR, through the Endangered Species Act. We call them Section 6 grants. So those were all funneled through the DNR, from Fish and Wildlife Service to the DNR to the Conservancy to conserve mainly habitat with Mitchell satyr butterflies. And then a slew of the other grants were from the Eagle, and that was through the Clean Water Act that funneled through the state to the Land Conservancy to purchase conservation easements mainly. So.
Do you farm?
We have 10 acres and a small hobby farm. My husband has his PhD in agroecology and runs the farm at the Kellogg Biological Station.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right. Well, thank you for applying. Appreciate that. It's a wealth of knowledge to take into that board.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gibson, thank you.
Thanks for applying. I have no questions, but your application is so outstanding. I've never seen this much experience applying for a position, and thanks for applying.
Commissioner Smucker?
Have you had a chance to attend any easement board meetings?
No, I haven't. I've been in contact with people that have attended, and I met with a subgroup of the easement board last year at one of the members' houses, and we just talked about the group, and they wanted advice on a few different things from the Land Conservancy's perspective. So I was actually consulting on behalf of the Land Conservancy with a few of the members. So,
okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much for applying.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Getty?
I think you bring just a wealth of experience to this board. I mean, not only your experience with the Conservancy, but your real estate background and your property owner relationships that you've built over several years. I'm just so glad that you're willing to volunteer and serve on the board. Thank you.
Well, you do have a depth of knowledge and experience. We're going to appoint you to this board. Even though you formally won't be appointed until next week, are you able to go to their board meeting on Thursday? All right. Great. Well, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So,
You need a motion to move this on?
let's just wait until Larry comes in. You could fill the ag interest, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we've interviewed Larry, I don't know how many times.
Right.
Well, we haven't corresponded with him that much, but I don't know if he wanted to come in and give an interview or not. We'll ask him. So the chair would entertain a motion to recommend appointment of Emily Wilkie to the Berry County Conservation Easement Board representing ag interest.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Do you want to appoint Larry?
I would vote to appoint him. He's been on there ever since I've known the Conservation Board has been in existence.
Yeah. What are the board's wishes?
I'd support that.
I'll make a motion to put Larry Neal on, move it ahead to the full board.
Is there support?
Support.
Been moved by Smelker, supported by Getty, to recommend reappoint. Actually, we would appoint him to the citizen at large position.
Mm-hmm.
To recommend appointment of Larry Neal to the citizen at large position.
It's a real estate
To-
development position.
The real estate development position. The chair to entertain a motion. Let's time out. There are too many tabs open in my brain. The chair, I'm going to remove your guy's previous motion, if there's no objection. The chair to entertain a motion now to recommend to the Board of Commissioners reappointment of Larry Neal to the Berry County Conservation Easement Board for a position representing real estate for a term that began on January 1, 2022 and ends on December 31st, 2024.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Yay. Gosh. All right, now we're going to move ahead to the next item, which is An amendment regarding personnel policies, new hire waiting period for health insurance. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to amend the Berry County personnel policies to reduce the health insurance waiting periods for new hires from 60 days to 0 days, effective January 1st, 2022, for general fund non-represented employees, including department heads and elected officials. Anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support, Jackson.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Michael.
Good morning, thank you. Yes, you've got the motion and an agenda request form. What this effectively doing is memorializing what I previously had asked authorization to do on a temporary basis. And we're coming back for two reasons, maybe three. One is that we're finding that as we compete, health insurance is becoming more common, that health insurance begins on the first day as opposed to a waiting period. Second is that that is one of the most important items as we recruit people, is health insurance, particularly at the as we're looking for seasoned individuals who have experience, that might have a family, they just can't afford to go without health insurance. And then a third item is that it's expensive. The cost of that 60-day waiting period for an employee to choose to purchase it at their cost at 75%, it is economically prohibitive at times. And as we dealt with our insurance agent, it was brought up that it may not, we don't know the case, but it may not qualify under the Affordable Care Act as considered affordable, if you may. So I did reach out to our attorney to consult with him a little bit, and it was not a surprise. He says he's seeing that more often as contracts move along, that to recruit in this competitive environment, that particular requirement is disappearing. So at this point, I'd ask that it apply to the personnel policies which impact the department heads and non-reps. I would also acknowledge that it'd be my recommendation that we consider it for all of our bargaining groups as well. I don't see that they're in any different situation other than we can't just arbitrarily do it. Even though it's a benefit increase, if you may, we would still need to, for lack of a better term, bargain it. What I would propose is that we go with a letter of understanding saying here's what we're planning to do, but that we not open the bargaining agreements or, for lack of a better term, bargain, but we do have to put a letter of understanding in place with those bargaining units. So I'd have our attorney put that together and send it out to the bargaining groups. So said a lot. I'll stop for just a minute and try to answer any questions.
Questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Gibson.
Do you know of other counties that have a shorter waiting period than ours at this time?
I don't. Right off, I didn't. Again, I went to our attorney as opposed to doing a survey and talked to our attorney. But I do know that, companies like Amazon, that's a big thing that they're touting right now. It's just becoming more and more common. And as we deal with, I think we've got right now 8 positions in the courts that they're trying to recruit. The most recent positions that I've recruited, it's been a requirement. I've had to agree to health insurance at the start. The Sheriff's Department, I know that they continue to struggle to try to recruit. And again, as we're looking to potentially recruit seasoned employees, not that we wouldn't, and there aren't some very qualified and talented young folks out there, But the reality is government isn't that exciting either. I mean, it just isn't. There was a time that government was a place that folks wanted to go. And we're really struggling to try to encourage government. We're seen as kind of inflexible, and flexibility is a critical thing that folks want right now. Still trying to understand the definition of flexibility, as I've spent, but we're just not a destination in and of itself. There was a time, but we're struggling right now to be that. So every little bit helps as we fill positions, and we do have a number of vacant positions.
Questions or comments?
Thank you. I understand this. I mean, I don't have a problem, except that I will vote yes on it, but with the understanding is I know how hard you and John worked on all these contracts, and I know you don't want to have to go through opening a contract and go through that, and I think this is a bonus for those people in those contracts, but I do not want to open the contracts back up because we went with a 5-year to streamline it. So I just want to make that known. So if I vote for it and then they want to open up the contracts, then we would have to say no to them. Is that the route you would take?
That will be your yeah. I mean, that it will not occur. This one you can affect yourself.
Okay.
The other is just for information, and I'll move forward with it, but it will not happen without the final vote of the board. So yes, you would have the ability to say, no, we're not going to open up the contract. We just want to do a letter of understanding.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Michael, is there a cost associated with this? I know it's a cost that we're incurring anyways, 60 days down the road. I don't know if you ran numbers based on last year's employment or whatever the case is.
I didn't run numbers based on employment. Yes, there is, Dave. I did. I did do some numbers based on an individual. So we would be talking about. But what I don't have is based on number of employees. To your point of kind of an average year, we would be talking about
say something else.
About $2,400
okay.
For a single and for a family about $6,600.
For those 60 days?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm sure you've looked at those numbers in terms of budgets and how that fits in and impact on all that. No issues.
I think honestly, the risk that we have right now is not being able to hire people as opposed to this cost associated with recruiting people.
Thank you.
But long term as well, I don't see it. The one thing that's significantly impacted our health care costs are the state caps that were placed on. So health insurance was capped a number of years ago. I don't know if it's been 10 years ago now, boy. But was the legislature capped what a public entity can contribute to health care based on single, two-person, and family rates. And that is indexed at the medical rate of inflation every year. Most folks' minds would say, wow, that's a big number, the rate of inflation. I don't know that it's been above 3%, and it's been in the 1%. Luella, am I fairly accurate that there were a number of years that it was at 1 or 2%? the medical rate of inflation?
The highest is around 3.5.
3.5. So it's not a number that most of us would think of when we think medical inflation. You know, those bills are, but so those capped amounts have gone up very modestly over the years and will continue to do that based on that legislation. So employees then continue to pick up more and more of that cost every year, or have to figure out how to, through our healthcare cost containment committee, how to negotiate plans and rates that reduce benefits to keep costs down. And so a long answer to your kind of question, but no, I don't have a concern with this proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm in favor of what you're trying to do. We've experienced some of these same problems at the Berry County Transit, and we've made some adjustment to correct our situation, so I would have to be in favor of what you're trying to do here. That's all I have.
Catherine?
I think this is an important tool for us to be able to recruit employees, and I'm in favor of it. There are a lot of applicants that may not apply because they can't afford to have a lack in insurance coverage, and this would, you know, give us that opportunity to attract those members to come in maybe with a little bit more experience that, you know, currently have insurance in their, you know, in their positions and looking for a lateral or a, you know, to move up in their position. So I'm in favor of it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approval to amend the Berry County personnel policies to reduce the health insurance waiting period for new hires from 60 days to 0 days effective 1/1/22 for general fund non-represented employees, including department heads and elected officials. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. So the next item before the board is the appointment of a individual to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority.
I make the motion to reappoint Cindy Vuja to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority.
Support.
Motion's been made and second. Is there any discussion? Michael?
This, if I recall, this was one that was before you previously, and it was requested that this go back if you made it to the Chamber and Economic Development Alliance, that is and to make sure that they are in agreement. They their last meeting, they did make a motion to recommend Cindy Vuja to the to reappointment to this board. So it's coming back to you now for your consideration and approval.
Great. Hearing no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we have an item update regarding the ARPA.
Yeah, well, Luella has pulled that up. So if you'll recall, you as a board approved the 7 projects with the first tranche of ARPA funds. And Mark Nettleton and I have worked and now have the agreements, 7 agreements that are ready to be sent to the recipients for their consideration and approval with regard to the funds. I thought I'd take a quick minute. I'm not going to walk you through all 7 agreements. Certainly welcome, but they have a common theme to them, if you may. Each agreement has, or each recipient will receive a sub-recipient agreement for the ARPA and SLFRF is State Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. SLRF. I think that is funds. That agreement is a common agreement except for who that agreement is with and the amount of the agreement. It just spells out the terms of what is required of the subrecipient with regard to use of these funds. Attached as Exhibit A to each agreement will be a copy of the subrecipient's application, so that the project is, if you may, an application is memorialized within the agreement. There will be an Exhibit B, which outlines the eligible use of the state and local fiscal recovery funds. In this case, there are 3 categories that are covered with those with Exhibit B. The first category is general revenue loss, and the second category is responding to the public health emergency or negative economic impacts, and the third category is investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And if you recall, there were 5 categories, I believe, total. So those should kind of ring a bell that those were the categories that funds could be allocated to. So Mark and I have looked at each of the projects and put them within a category. Exhibit B then outlines the eligible use of the funds with regard to that category, as well as the prohibited use of funds with regard to that category. Comes straight from the American Rescue Plan Act, so that each subrecipient is aware of the eligible uses as well as prohibited uses of the funds. And then the final exhibit, Exhibit C, is common to each of the subrecipient agreements, and that outlines the reporting requirements. We will be responsible ultimately for the reporting requirements to the federal government, but we're passing those same requirements on to the subrecipients so that they understand them and know that they're responsible to report to us the necessary information. So the idea was that while at the end of the day these folks are subrecipients of funds that we're responsible for and have to report for, we've tried to package an agreement that is efficient, if you may. It's not so long that it's, individuals are unable to understand it, but does clearly spell out the requirements that the funds can and can't be used for, as well as the reporting requirements. So I'll stop there for a minute. I'm happy to try to walk through any specific area of the agreements or answer general questions.
Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Jackson.
Michael, definition of subrecipient, we're not talking about, are we talking about the county and a contract with 911 for a tower? Are we talking about levels deeper than that with the actual contractors and subcontractors being hired by those contractors? How many levels deep are we monitoring here?
Yeah, so the subrecipient would be the entity that's receiving the funds.
Okay.
Berry Township will be one. Central Dispatch Authority Board, Parks and Recreation Commission, the Road Commission, the Village of Freeport, the Berry Community Foundation, which will be on behalf of the Blue Zones Project, and Rutland Charter Township, which will be with regard to the sewer and water and broadband study that was presented. Those are the subrecipients. Beyond that, it's contractors.
Okay, so we don't have, these agreements aren't being pushed deeper than the recipients?
They aren't, no.
Okay, so the responsibility is on Berry Township and 911 to be sure that the contracts are properly administered. Do we have access to those contracts, or do we have any? I mean, it gets so deep you can't obviously see every contract with every contractor involved in it, but we are ultimately liable for funds being expended.
We are, and yeah, we would have through this access to every contract or document that we might request or want or need for reporting requirements.
Okay. One thing on page 3, section 4, obligations, expenditure, timing requirements, reporting requirements. One question I had is that it talks about how funds have to be committed by 2024, excuse me, and expended by 2026. Does that give us any leeway? Let's say that there's an issue with a contractor starting work, getting materials, and because that deadline is the actual deadline for ARPA as well, if in fact somebody fails to complete that commitment or expenditure timeline, should we back those dates up by 3 to 6 months? So if there happens to be, I don't anticipate there being a failure, but if there is a failure, it would give us some room to reallocate funds if needed in a time frame versus sending that money back to the Treasury. Would it be better to have the deadline be June 1st, 2024 and June 1st, 2026? Or June 30th, I'm sorry, if need be?
We could certainly consider that and make that adjustment. Honestly, I hadn't thought about that. We were tying it to what was in the Public Act. I get what you're saying there, that
if there's a fail, the money goes to the Treasury. We don't have the option to keep it.
and really the date that would be relevant, I guess, would be the committed or pardon me, incurred date, because the expended, thinking through this, if you get to the expended date, you wouldn't be able to reallocate them because they'd have been incurred. You can't go back. So it really becomes the whole concept of incurred, to your point, prior to March, or so you'd want it that December 31, 2024 to potentially be June 1.
June 30th, 2024.
2024.
Or September 30th, just something that gives us a little leeway if we had to pivot on short notice. Like I said, although it would be rare in this instance when we have this much time to work, it just might be something to consider.
If the board would like that modification made, we can do that.
What are the board's wishes?
I see nothing wrong with that.
I like the 6 months, because if we have to pivot, we're going to need some time to pivot.
I agree. I like your idea. I think that's a great thought. Could we reach out, though, to Mr. Nettleman just to make sure there's no...
Yes, we do have time.
We do have time to do that?
Yeah, I mean, this is our process. This is our ARPA money. We shouldn't, it's good that we got the contracts back so fast. We just need to make sure we take our time and we are planning for unexpected contingencies.
Yeah, it's a minor modification, but that was pointed out in the conversation I was having with Joel, and I think Joel and Charles had talked about that, so.
I can consult with Mark, and I guess we'll bring that back at the next board meeting.
Great.
I won't be here, but I'll get that answer to Ben, and we'll make sure that you have that information. Right offhand, I don't know why that would be an issue, but I'll confirm that with Mark.
John, then Vivian.
On these, we send these out to the recipients, sub-recipients, and then they will send back a copy of their contract with this to us do we look at that?
So they'll enter into this agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And send it back. They'll take it to their respective boards, sign it, send it back, and then the board will have to authorize it as well. And then it'll be in place, and then the project can move forward. And what we will do is work based on pay applications, drawdowns, if you may.
Mm-hmm. Now, in there, I know 2 of the projects have support and maintenance in them. But should we put something in there that says they have to have support or maintenance to take care of these projects?
So if
I read through that and I didn't see it exact, but a lawyer wrote
go
it.
to I got to get to the water. Under Exhibit B, investments in water, sewer, and broadband, under Item 2, eligible uses, subsection 4, if the project to be undertaken includes a component to address expected growth in population, the project must also be sustainable. And then goes on to talk about that. Are you looking for something more specific than that relating to maintenance?
As long as there's something in there for, if it's IT, there's got to be support and maintenance, and water projects, I believe there has to be a maintenance thing. Oh, yeah. I know I'm agreeing with Gary here, and that's unusual, but
I will.
That was asked of them in the public forum, and two of them said yes, and I believe Delton's water tower said that they would look into that. I believe it was the mayor of Delton was here or something to think. So I believe they have that in there, but I just want to make sure.
I will confirm that.
Any other questions? Vivian, you had one?
I did, but John
Sorry.
John started, no, you didn't steal it, you just started the discussion on it, so.
Well, this process needs to.
We'll have answers for that next Tuesday.
Very good.
So we don't need to act on anything today?
If you want to make a recommendation, moving these to the full board, and then I'll have that information available and potential updates if at the full board.
Anyone want to make the motion?
I'll make a motion that we move these contracts to the full board for the ARPA money.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded to move the presented contracts to the Board of Commissioners for approval.
It just, if I can interrupt, it just occurred to me that we didn't present you with an agenda request form.
Yeah.
So
that's why we're on the fly.
Yeah, I apologize. If you want to withdraw the motion, I'll put together an appropriate agenda request form under new business, if you may, for the full board meeting. And then you're not working
Motion withdrew.
Commissioner Smelker withdraws his motion. Does the consenting or does the supporting commissioner consent?
Yes.
Motion is withdrawn without objection. Thank you, Michael. I don't know if it's allowed, honestly.
I think the public is allowed to talk on agenda items.
Right, before a vote. We don't have anything on the floor right now.
Okay.
But I will let people talk on the the board rule changes. Is that what you're wishing to talk about?
Yeah, because I had some questions about this too, because I printed it all out from the reading and stuff.
Yeah.
And like Mr. Jackson said, I
Well-
talked with Joel, and then Joel got in contact
Yeah.
with him, so.
I'll allow. So what we do is we always bring a motion to the floor before we debate an item. So,
But before, can we have a break?
um,
The next item?
I want to make something clear first before we go to a break. Let's put this on the floor, and then I want to say something, and then we'll take a break. So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 2204, a resolution amending the Berry County Board of Commissioners Rules of Procedure and Regulations.
I make that motion?
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved by Connor, supported by Smelker. Discussion. I just, this is a big change, and you guys didn't know it, but this morning during public comment, I applied the new rules to Eldon's public comment, just to see how the reaction was. Well, let me tell you, that makes it a lot harder. We're going to have to talk about that. So.
Okay, but we can't take a recess when we
Yeah,
have
we're gonna.
something on the floor, can
Yeah, we can. Yeah, without objection, we're going to take a recess. Hearing no objection, we'll recess for 5 minutes. To adopt the resolution amending the Berry County Board of Commissioners Rules of Procedure and Regulations. Commissioner Connor, this is your proposal. Would you like to speak on it?
Thank you. When we met on the 1st, one of the big things was the germane, the topic of germane items, which we have removed. We also took that out of, it was a separate item, but then there was a part of it in the comment portions, and we also removed it from that. This isn't, and I understand the comment about telling us what we can and cannot talk about. No, I get that. I totally understand that. The comment was made this morning about that. That's not it at all. This is more of a guidelines of etiquette and addressing the board. And it also reaches out even to the audience, and it also reaches out to people that are in the community. These are live streamed meetings. And there are times when there have been comments made about people during public comment that aren't even here, that are really inappropriate. So it's really about etiquette. It's not about not wanting people to come and speak at our meetings, because that's not true. I like to get phone calls and emails too. So, and lots of times when, just because somebody doesn't come here and voice an opinion, it doesn't mean that I don't talk to a lot of people in between meetings or reach out to a lot of people to get their opinions on something. But it's about etiquette during a meeting, and that we have to do our business. And in order to do that, we have to have a civil meeting. It is kind of unfortunate, so many things that in the past may have, just in general, we see it in life everywhere, where things that we used to say are no longer acceptable. And we need to be vigilant that we act appropriately while doing the business of the county.
Thank you. I'll open the board, or open the floor to discussion. Dave.
Here's my question. I made the motion to table this 2 weeks ago because of input that I think it came from Larry Bass and there were some questions, and Larry was going to provide information
Yeah.
to us on some other legal opinions on the Open Meetings Act. He cited several things. I thought the reason we delayed this for 2 weeks was to get that information, so we had some other in-depth information to review. None of that information is in the packet, so we really haven't addressed the concerns or got that information. So I am willing to retable this discussion again until we get that information.
Well, before you make that motion, I just want to tell you what happened this morning during public comment. Now, I've known Eldon for a long time, and anybody that's been up to this meeting knows I don't ask people to re-choose their words. So, when the words disrespectful and intimidating appear in these board rules. So I listened and applied the gavel when I thought he could, under these rules, breach it. Let me tell you, it's not fun. It changes a whole lot, because if you are a chairperson that just wants to solicit public comment, allow them to speak, that's one thing. But if you have a chairperson in the future that wants to filter what someone says or change their words, they could do that under this. This is too, it needs to be, this wording needs to be changed. How many of you were surprised when I gavelled Eldon down? He was too, and I think it threw him off his game, or he lost his train of thought. And then he was surprised. I'm surprised. He was wondering, like, what do I need to say? And so I understand the spirit of this, but we do need to make some changes in this. Questions, comments?
Whether we pass this or not, isn't it the chair's job to keep civility and control the meeting? And whether we pass this or not, you have the authority to do that, right?
Correct. Keep it civil.
And
but we can't give the chairperson position power to censor somebody.
well, a rope around the neck is getting a hair strong, but
Yeah, I was getting a hair strong.
it on this, I agree with Dave. He had paperwork from AG, is what I understood. And I know Larry's health ain't the greatest, and I wonder why he ain't here. So I would agree with David that we could table this until we get that information from the attorney that he's talking about.
And Ben, if you and Vivian want to put your heads together with some of your input and some of her input from the attorney and revamp that so you think it's acceptable, I think that would be appropriate to get that information and get your input on that. Since you and Vivian are the ones who are the primary administrators of these rules at this point. And, you know, the concern I have is that Vivian mentioned in opening rules and guidelines. Well, these are board rules. You know, the Open Meetings Act are rules. You know, Robert's Rules of Order are guidelines. So we have to be careful what we're interpreting, because we can't violate the Open Meetings Act and we have to follow that. I don't have a problem with, you know, I like the thought of pulling things out like Jermaine and some of that, but I just think we have to be careful because you can't be restrictive where the Open Meetings Act is. I think our rules are very good and very clear, but we have had instance of issues this past year that some of this does address. So we had talked last time about the fact that taking away someone's right to speak at a meeting might be a little dramatic when if they are out of order. So there are some things I think you can address in there, but
What are your thoughts, Commissioner Connor?
Can we break for 2 minutes?
For what purpose?
Clarification.
On what?
on this topic and information that is available?
What are the board's wishes? We'll take a break if there's no objection. Break for 5 minutes. Hearing no objection, the board is recessed for 5 minutes. Connor, your mic is muted.
Sorry about that.
Unmuted. So you asked for a recess.
Yes, for clarification.
And I offered you to recess. And then you said no.
Yeah, thank you. In answer to Commissioner Jackson's request, I would like to make a motion to make open to the public the research and the correspondence from Tim Perrone that he sent us on January 17th, 2020. This was asked for at the time by Chairperson Wing, and it is regarding Open Meetings Act issue, and it was a request to look at what were his recommendation regarding board rules on public comment. My motion to release this information, and I think everything that all the AGs and all of the research that he presented to us is in here.
So Commissioner or Vice Chair Connor has made a motion to release the
To make public
the attorney's opinion regarding the board rules from Tim Perrone.
his recommendation, yes.
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and seconded to release the attorney's opinion from Tim Perrone. Pam, what's the verbiage we're going with?
I've got that moved by Connor, second by Smelker, to make public the Open Meetings Act information from Tim Perrone.
We consider it read. We should have a roll call vote on this. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Campbell.
Yes.
Connor.
Yes.
Getty.
Aye.
Gibson.
No.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye. The item is released. We'll now go back to the pending motion, which is to recommend the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 2204, a resolution amending the Berry County Board of Commissioners Rules of Procedure and Regulations. So, Commissioner Connor, the floor is still yours.
So, because we've talked about this, and I will, if you want to stick around after the meeting, I'll make copies of this and get this to each commissioner, or I can put them in your mailbox. But I would like to move this along to the board meeting. I think that once you read this, you'll understand where these come from, and move this forward to the board next week. And this will be included in the packet. I will give it to you, but it will also be in the packet, which will go out to the public. If that's agreeable with everybody.
Let's see. Well, I do think we need to clean up the language in Section 3, because after administering it and being a little stricter with the gavel, it does change the mindset that you have. Instead of listening to public comment, the chairperson could screen content of what somebody's offering. So, well, I wouldn't use that power. I don't want someone in the future using it. I don't want to change the board flow. Let's just, I think we're all having a little brain fog right now. Let's just move this after ARPA funds.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
As somebody who wasn't here in 2020 and hasn't seen the report, I'd like to have a chance to read through it
Okay.
before we even discuss it any further.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I feel if we postpone this to the next cow again and read everything and stuff, because there's still stuff in there that I think goes too far. So I would like to postpone it.
Can I ask the
The
commissioner?
only part that I like in there is people should address the chair.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Connor.
And when John clarified, he answered my question.
Before we proceed to vote on postponing this item, does any member of the public wish to speak on this? I think it would be pretty hypocritical of us to talk about citizen participation and not allow them to speak on it.
You guys kind of, Chuck Hertzler, City of Hastings, how you doing?
Well, if you want to be a commissioner, the first thing you got to learn is you got to speak in the microphone.
Right. I usually talk loud enough you can hear me, though. A lot of what I was wanting to talk about with this has already been kind of discussed here. So, actually, I'm doing some research on this and stuff. I found where many areas now are trying to do more to entice people to come and speak. All right. I know that it's been reported I've been very disruptive and I yell at the board and everything else, but it's out of frustration because you come up here and you want to speak, you want some answers to questions, but you can't get answers and questions. So I know certain places, and I don't have it with me, but there's certain places there where they're changing the rules. So yes, you have 3 minutes to speak. But if you directly ask somebody on the board a question, the clock stops and the question gets answered, then the clock continues so you can finish your 3 minutes. Participation, all right? The whole thing about this is you get aggravated because you sit up here and you guys don't answer our questions and stuff. You don't communicate with us. There's no interaction, and it just gets so frustrating that people start yelling and getting a little bit out of hand, like maybe Alden was doing today and stuff. And I just think that maybe it could be something you want to, if you want to change your rules, you can take that into consideration. Maybe you do want to have allow a time for a question to be answered or something. If the public wants to make the effort to come up here, get an answer.
Yeah. So, as chairperson of the board, whoever sits in the seat can make some changes or have a different style. I've always tended to leave public comment at true public comment. If it is an incidental question, like where's the bathroom, we'll do that. But it's our jobs to answer questions, but not during the middle of a board meeting.
So when do the people actually get to read?
You ask them to stick around after the meeting.
Yeah, but then the people here don't know what it is that you want to talk about.
Well, that's the way the law set it up.
That's the thing. It's not everybody can come up here at 9 o'clock in the morning. Not everybody's going to be able to make it at 7 o'clock at night if you have the night meetings. So when you make a thing, it's a recorded live stream and I live streaming. The people can hear your question and hear the answer and get more of a reaction to what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more public that way. And I just think it would be something worth kind of at least investigating. Okay? And the one other thing I want to say is, in your lawyer's report, I was told to me that your lawyer said that if you're going to implement these rules, that you better do it with extreme caution and extreme caution should be exercised.
Where did you hear that?
I just heard it from other people that I've talked to out there. I can't remember the exact source. I just know that was told to me. And so I was going to bring that forward today, but now you're going to expose the lawyer's fees so we can all read it. So I appreciate that.
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't quite make out what you just said. Did you say we were going to expose the lawyer's fees?
No, you said that his report.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
sorry.
you just
I thought
said
you
you were
said
making that
fees.
public.
Yeah,
No, sorry.
That's what I was confused about.
Okay, sorry.
I thought you said fees, I thought.
No, so that'll make it easier for everybody to be able to get a hold of and read it.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on it?
I'm glad you heard the same thing I heard.
Yeah, Gary White, Nashville. Have you folks read the Open Meetings Act? Limited public comment takes about a page. It allows the public to address the board, not the chairman. So it's flat out. You can't regulate them to address the chairman. They have the legal right to address the board. I don't think you've cross-referenced. You get two attorneys, they're taught how to argue both cases. You always have a defense attorney, you know, and a prosecutor, right? And they're both right. Ask them. So getting a legal opinion and saying this is what your lawyer says, there's other lawyers out there that are going to say, geez, okay, I disagree. The other problem I think I see today, did you take official board action today to release it without having a board meeting? What's the difference? You know, the cow meeting, I've said I think you should be able to reduce your meetings down to at least 3. Because did you take official action today just now to release
Yes.
that? And can you, without being on a board?
When 7 members, elected members of the Berry County Board of Commissioners are assembled in a publicly posted meeting, that shall be considered a board meeting. We are assembled today as a committee of the whole.
Okay, so let's get into why do you have a cow meeting and a board meeting, and why do you have consent and re-vote on what you vote for at a cow meeting? That's been a question I've been asked to ask you folks, so it doesn't make a sense to vote twice on it, does it?
Do you have any?
Recommending in a cow meeting to go into, you're recommending yourselves to vote for it.
So, Gary, do you have any comments on the proposed changes?
You can't make the public address the chair only. They have the legal right to address the board.
I don't care if it's the board. I just don't want them attacking them. I'm sorry.
know.
They ain't
And
supposed to talk.
It is
No. We've broken the fourth wall to have this discussion.
Yeah, and you should have conversation. If you have public comment, you need to have someplace on your agenda where you address public comment. Whether it's at time of public comment or later on in that agenda, you need to address, because they're here to be heard. You heard me today. I think it's about the first time I've been heard here for months and months.
No, it's not.
Well, I'm saying it feels like it. Okay, so, and I think people said that many times, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Jack Miner. Oh, sorry, I didn't see Adam.
I won't go too long, but just to reiterate again, I said a couple weeks ago, might as well just have the attorney come and make the decisions if that's the way that we want to make decisions. And they're 100% right. Attorneys are not actually truly looking to protect our constitutional rights and our protected, rights and abilities here. And they will. They're going to argue it however they want. They're going to give you the reason, that they have for, just the way that they feel they can defend it, right? It's just none of that makes sense. A lot of that just seems very vague and overbroad. I mean, it gives, like Ben said, I mean, he truly knows, if any of you guys, others on the board, have not actually sat as the chair, I mean, that extra pressure that truly is, and that's adding a heck of a lot more onto that point person, as well as, I mean, it's not encouraging people to want to come and speak. I agree as well, as far as if you want to change something, as far as make it more standard in your communications here. Figure out how to communicate with the people that are coming here and asking questions. Behind the scenes, to say to come afterwards. I mean, that's I say politics is darkness. Things that are done in the darkness, behind the scenes, away from the public eye, not here in the public meeting. So, any clarifications, things like that, I think should always be done in the open right here. So, I think that if you're going to make any changes, I think that maybe there should be some changes, but I think that those changes that are on there are definitely not the ones that you guys should be looking for. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miner?
Commissioner Connor talked about an attorney that provided some information in 2020. I did a search of my records of my meeting here in 2020, and I found nothing. Could someone, perhaps in the next few days, send me the video of that meeting? Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not sure I understand the request.
Was a meeting, a public meeting, that this information was passed to the commissioners?
Yeah.
I don't think it was.
No,
I think it was just,
it was a recommendation when, may I?
yeah.
When Heather Wing was the chair, there was a recommendation that was obtained regarding how we should move forward with possibly amending the rules. Regarding open meetings and public comment. And this was not attached at that time to an agenda item. An agenda item was brought forward in 2020, but this recommendation was not attached to it.
By what authority does this attorney speak?
I wasn't the chair when it was requested.
He's in the firm that we have retained as the legal representation for this, that we seek legal opinions for this county.
Thank you. And that opinion you will have in the next packet, is that correct?
Yes, and now it looks like it might be being tabled, but it will be in the next packet when we bring this forward.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Interacting with the public is the most important thing that we do. So it's good that we're moving slow. It's good that we're being deliberate. Would anyone like to make a motion to postpone?
We did.
I don't think we did.
I make a motion to postpone this
Support.
until next cow.
Sure. I'll support that.
Commissioner Smelker has moved to postpone the question before the committee to the next committee of the whole, which will be
3:15.
board meeting. April 1st.
Real quickly, we have a board meeting next on the 8th, and then if you'll recall, the 15th, which should have been a committee of the whole, was changed to a board where you'll just do the business all at that moment, because the 22nd was canceled due to the MAC conference. So the next then cow would be April, is it 1st?
Let's do this on April Fool's.
It'd be April 5th.
April 5th.
Thank you.
Tuesday.
Is there any discussion on the motion to postpone?
I do have a couple of comments.
Are they related to the motion to postpone?
No.
Well, we're going to vote on the motion to postpone.
Did we get a second?
Yeah, who
Okay.
seconded? That's germaneness. All those in favor of postponing, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is postponed. All right, now
So now I can't make my comments, correct? Because it's closed.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a, all right, so ARPA funds.
Need more rules.
Round 2 discussion. So we don't have to speed through this. We can take our time. I think we really need to focus on the Berry County Jail. If the Board of Commissioners, we as commissioners, are interested in putting an item on the August ballot, then we need to have the language done by May 10th. Which means we need to start discussing what to put on the ballot right now. So with the ARPA process.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
I was wondering where you were going with that, too.
Is there going to be any public forums before then?
First, I just want to have a conversation of when we wanted to have the window for applications, assuming that the board still wants to go that route. I think the late spring, early summer. John?
Discussion is fine, but I don't think we should do much of anything until we get the 7 contracts done that we have now.
Absolutely.
But, you know, you can discuss how to do that.
I like that just philosophically, that we're not going to move on to round 2 until we make sure the process
For round 1 is
for
done.
round 1 is solid.
Thank you.
We also need to define the process of who's going to sit on, like, is there going to be a committee that oversees these contracts? We're going to use the Board of Public Works.
Say that again? Will you?
It's rhetorical. The process that we've used in the past, having a task force, seemed to be good.
Sorry, oh, there was a fly.
You're throwing me off today, Vivian.
Sorry, there was a fly.
So, the public forums that we had, I think we provided a lot of information. But because of the venue and because we had to be out at a certain time, it really didn't give people a chance to dig into the projects. So I'd like to see the public forums be reformatted. What do you guys think about giving preference to or a little more weight to communities that haven't applied for grants? Or do you want to give it all to John to decide? Yeah.
I'm glad.
No.
John, you want it all? We'll just let John.
No, I just feel that there's other things that need to be talked about. You know, you mentioned the jail. There is enough money left in the ARPA funds to do a COA, which would take that off the backs of the taxpayers. That has to be talked about.
So you're thinking that a possible use for round 2 would be to just go with the new COA and not offer it up to local communities?
I'm not standing here and saying we should do that, but I am sitting here and saying we should discuss it, yes. Absolutely.
What? It does change what we indicated we were going to do in the past discussions. A lot of local governments, or all the local governments, are expecting that we'll have this round open up. So I don't know if I would agree with you on that, John.
That's never happened before.
Yeah, it's never happened before.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think we need to do something for the COA before we do the jail, because I don't think people are going to vote for 2 millages.
No, last time they didn't even vote for 1.
Right.
I think we invested some money in asking questions about where the biggest need for broadband was in the county. That study and report is on the cusp of being released. We've received a draft. We've kicked the proverbial ball down so many times on broadband, and that was one of the initial programs offered through ARPA. I would like to see it as a priority in the second round.
Concerns I have with broadband are, what's $6 million going to buy? Not a whole lot. I mean, it's investing in broadband, but there's going to be a lot of people that don't get it. Yeah, we get to say we invested in broadband, but you're going to get a lot of angry emails. Well, why does my internet still suck?
We might also get a lot of thank yous for
We
folks
might.
who get access that broadband incentives allowed a provider to go that last mile, to extend it just a little bit further.
So will that study that is almost done give us some insight on what we could do with this money, do with $6 million? Okay.
Van Buren County just announced that they designated half of their $14.5 million for broadband.
Dave.
Seems like we just finished round one. So I was a little surprised to have this on the agenda. Like, I think there's a learning curve here from round one, seeing how contracts are applied, seeing how contracts are completed, seeing scope of work when they're done. There's a lot of different things I think we could learn going into round two if we take a pause and let round one work itself out for a while. I wasn't thinking about the fact that we were going to see ARPA on round two as an agenda item actually until 2023. So I was surprised to see it. I don't think there's a reason to hit the accelerator on this and go, because I think there are some big picture issues that we should be thinking about. Keep in mind, with the rule change, the county board could appropriate literally taking that $6 million and allocating it to whatever we need. We've discussed broadband, which is a huge need in the county. Child care is a huge need. Housing is a huge need. Those things all feed into employment. We keep talking about employment, having employment as being one of the biggest challenges. But there are several big picture items we could look at in there. And when you talk about broadband, housing, child care, in a meeting with Rutland Township a month or so ago, they haven't committed their ARPA funds, but they're looking for projects that may help them collaboratively. So if they take $450,000 and we match it with $450,000, and the state, advocates $450,000, you can layer some of those funds that have a big impact. Maybe $6 million doesn't do anything, but what if 12 or 18 million does? So we should, before we even consider having those conversations, we should look and see if there are collaborative projects with our local units of government that benefit things like broadband, housing, child care, things that'll have a huge impact countywide.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we're as had been mentioned, I think pausing or tapping the brakes on this and really looking at how we can work broadly with these funds to have the most impact, or where it's needed the most. I think a summer RFP is not giving us enough time to work through what's already been done with these first projects and really evaluate, did we screw up? Do we need better contracts, more details, stuff like that. So I'm not necessarily in favor of going forward with anything with ARPA at this point.
Just until next year?
Well, let's maybe it's not next year. Maybe we'll get these contracts in 6 months. We'll go, hey, this worked better than we thought.
Yeah.
Or that there was a window that we've talked to townships and local units, and we found some opportunities where we can layer, because the state hasn't really even talked about their ARPA funds. I know they're talking about broadband and some things. There may be some opportunities to collaborate with bigger matching dollars, but we have to have time to look for those dollars and see what's available. And that just hasn't happened yet. still a little early in the process.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I did bring it up. We have some people in the community that are eager to have round 2 open up. And we don't have the bandwidth right now. And we have to evaluate what works and what doesn't. And help like small towns like Woodland that have good ideas but don't necessarily have a plan printed out. It'd be nice to help them be able to work through a process where they could get that done.
Well, it'd be nice when we get this broadband study that we can forward this to local units of government and suggest, hey, if you have ARPA dollars that aren't committed and we have resources to improve broadband in those areas, you can touch Nashville and Woodland and Delta and some of the outlying areas, you know, and see if we can make a difference in some of those areas on a bigger impact. But like I said, I don't think we can do that if we are ready, you know, to fire the starting pistol and take off and run again.
We're not ready.
It was the understanding this was just discussing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we gotta wait. But everything should be brought on the table.
Mm-hmm. So what I'd like to do is revisit this in June or something, see what we're thinking.
Fine with me.
If there's no other comments on ARPA, can we flip to the jail for a second?
Yes, and with the jail, we need to have just an open discussion on what we did wrong, what worked and what didn't work, and what our opportunities are. And we need to do it candidly, openly, transparently, because we need to be the leaders that bring a new jail to this county. And it's not going to happen without trust. And we need to trust one another and build the community's trust. But I don't know if I'm ready today to have like an open discussion on what went wrong, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Dave?
Well, I think there's a lot of people in the community that are willing to tell us what went wrong.
Oh, yeah.
That was, it felt like almost everything. But was that a 60-40? Where did the millage actually?
43.
43, okay. I think we need, I don't know that August is going to work because I think, first of all, you have to have a site selection. And B, I think we went with a unique opportunity to let contractors come in and pitch their services. But as we've seen from Wexford County and what's Coldwater?
Branch
County, that there are some people that have built some new jails at some pretty nice price points with a lot bigger. It's almost like we know what we need. It'd be nice to get input. I'm not sure the legislature ever came through, as was mentioned in the middle of the bond promotion, that the jail was too large because the state was going to cut back on all these restrictions and early release and all these things, that a new jail should be smaller. So, but we know that state governments change based on who's in control of that stuff. So we need a site location. We need probably an RFP with what we know about approximately 125 beds in that jail, with some of the technology to make it a lot easier for our officers to go back and forth versus transporting, you know, telecommunications. You know, there are a lot of things that we need to look at in this, but if we don't have a site selected and we don't have an RFP with a jail plan laid out, diagrammed in detail, one of the things that people did not like was the fogginess of the fact that after you approve the $26 million, then we're going to show you what a jail will actually look like. That was way too. It was unique, but people don't like the unknown. They like the known. So they're telling us they want.
When we're dealing with the taxes of our constituents, they don't like a lot of question marks.
Yeah, and hindsight's always great, but I agree with that this is what a jail looks like, this is where we're going to build it, this is how we're going to build it, this is the timeline, the price tag, solid numbers. And if that may require an RFP, and I'm not sure we can put an RFP together for some of those same companies to come in and tell us what they could do it for with our requirements at this location, and have it on a ballot, have that all completed by May for an August ballot. So
Yeah,
I think that's too quick.
It is it is too quick if we used our process that we did last time. I personally am fatigued by consultants. I've sat on this board for a long time, and we all know the issues with the Berry County Jail. We don't need an expert to tell us that having a jail closer to the center of the county is a good location. We don't need them to tell us that our facility's falling apart. We pretty much know what the jail construction concepts are. The reason that I'm talking about this now is this process, if we did it ourselves, might be a lot quicker and could get something on the August ballot. We've heard time and again they want us to save money. You know, they want a facility that meets the needs of the community, but not a whole lot more. So maybe we'll, John.
I see no reason why not to talk about it, but I can tell you right now, the price of that jail went up about 30% and started this year.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about it, but to send out an RFP on it, you might faint when you get it, any prices.
Mm-hmm. So maybe the solution is let's have a workshop sometime next month or so that we can talk about it. Michael will have some information on what our requirements are for a bond millage and a Headley override if the county wanted to raise revenue that way. You guys are awful quiet. Anything?
I'm willing to come in and talk about it anytime.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and start looking at dates for that. Now we're going to go into closed session. This isn't going to take that long, so folks. Yeah.
Since they did all those changes legislatively, now our big problem we're having is all the mentals and the serious criminals that we have in there right now, and we have no place to put them. And we also had another outbreak of COVID in there. It was we had 25 inmates at one time that had it, and of course some of my staff got it also. But those should be kind of high priority on our talking points, as the amount of mentally ill that we're getting, and the criminal, and the fact that we don't have some place big enough to quarantine large groups. So, any questions?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Darren. So we will be back. Well, we in closed session will plan on being back here at 11:20, 11:25. What do you think, Who?
Sounds good.
All right, by 11:25.
Where are we going?
We're going to the circuit courtroom. But, and who needs to make a motion?
Jury room or the circuit court room?
Circuit courtroom.
I move to go into closed session in accordance with Public Act 267 of 1976, subsection 15-268, section 8D, to consider the purchase of real property.
Support.
Motion by Gibson, supported by Smelker, to go into closed session in accordance with Public Act 267 of 1976, subsection 15.268, section 8D, to consider the purchase of real property. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Getty.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Connor. Aye. Geiger.
Aye. The board will now enter closed session.
I'm gonna run down, as long as we get a more closed session, maybe she can copy these for. But you have to.
Minutes, and we will be roll calling.
We aim to please.
What's that?
We aim to please.
I am. Okay.
Committee will come to order. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
The motion is made by Gibson, supported by Getty. Is there discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, call the roll.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Campbell. Absent. I'm
yes,
sorry.
he left.
Absent. Connor.
Aye.
Getty.
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes. Hold on, our clock is not working. You can start.
Okay. Charles Hertzler, City Hastings, thank you. I did want to talk some about the ARPA stuff, but obviously we didn't get the chance to, so I'll do a little bit right now. This thing about where it says that eligible cost incurred from March 3rd, 2021 to December 31st, 2024, as long as the obligations are incurred by December 31st, 2024, and are expended by December 31st, if the recipient has incurred an obligation with respect to such cost by December 31st, 2024, if there are any funds that are not obligated or expended within that period, and they did say obligated or expended, that the funds must be returned to the county to be returned to the Treasury. So that was, as I say, do a 6-month thing or something so we have opportunity to use that money instead of send it back to the Treasury. I like that. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I also wanted to point out that in your packet with all these stuff, it says the county has received this money, number 1, to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Number 2, support families and businesses struggling with the pandemic's plummeting health and economic impacts. Number 3, to maintain vital public services amid declines in revenue. And lastly, build a strong, resilient, and equitable recovery by making investments that short long-term growth and opportunity. To support long-term. Okay, it says it several times here. Number 1 and number 2, fight COVID, and then support businesses and families struggling. I don't see where any of that we just did much of that, other than maybe the 911. Yet last night at the city commissioners meeting, the police gave a commendation to a citizen because they rescued a person who was about to die from hypothermia, who had recently become homeless. And what do we have in this county for homeless people? We gave money to Blue Zones to help extend life in this county, make people live longer. What do we do for the COA? You know, Commission on Aging. We got people going to start living longer because we're supporting Blue Zones. What are we doing for any of that? This is all interesting stuff that I know that we can't answer and stuff right now, but I would just like to put this forth for people to think about. Like he said, with the water towers and everything else, maintenance. They couldn't come up with over 20 years ago when they put this system in to find the money to build a water tower. How have the rules changed in 20 years now when they go to put this water tower there? Is a new recommendation stuff that they're going to have to now follow? Is this all included in ARPA money? There's a lot of questions that I think need to be answered or looked at. And I know that you guys went with the referral team, and I don't know how deep they went into this stuff with the people that applied for the money. But I'm glad you're going to take more time with the second round. I appreciate that. I'm sure the people of Berry County appreciate that, because I think there's a lot better things we could do with that money than what we did with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Yeah, Gary White, Nashville. just a little bit ago, I was told that this board meeting is a board meeting. It's not a cow meeting. Any action you take is action that's done and over with. So when you're double voting on votes, it's a concern. I had one person that's in government right now that it was at a state board, and their state board was told to stop recommending to themselves to do this. So today you pass that health insurance, correct? Then you're going to put out a consent agenda and repass it. Well, if you're an official board, why are you recommending to yourselves what to do? I ran a small business for 13 years. Look around and how many county employees do you have up in here coming every Tuesday because you're not willing to reorganize? If you can't reorganize yourself and how you do business, how can you help to reorganize the county and its needs nowadays? If they make a good proposal and you pass it, why do you put it back on your agenda to be passed in a consent agenda? If you can eliminate waste, which I had to do in a small business, which I did in my job before, and you can't see that you're wasting people's time by double dipping, you can get rid of 2 meetings a month now. I said one I thought would have been pretty easy. Based on your chairman's statement that every board meeting you're here, you're a board meeting, you get rid of your cow meetings. You're going to move the thing 2 weeks away to another cow meeting, correct? Well, you just move it to another board meeting and eliminate your cows. Either they do a good presentation and you have enough information to make a decision, or you don't. Because you make that decision every time at your cow meetings to come back and re-verify your decision at your board meeting. Does that make sense? It was implemented some time ago. Doesn't mean you should not reorganize and rethink how you do business. Business is changing every day. If you don't keep up with how you change, you never can. And on a more positive note, I'm going to be turning my petition in for District 5 County Commissioner, so I will be running for that position this coming year. On the jail, I think the people want to know what the county is going to come up with before you come and ask for more money from them. $6 million should be just a start if you use ARPA funds. You've had a jail problem for 10, 20 years now, 15 years now. What have you saved for that? You have funds all over the place. Your people want to know what you've done to prepare for a jail. Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Hi, Chloe Kelly, Hastings Township. I'm just going to read from my phone my thoughts. So I understand your position in keeping the public comment as only public comment. The issue is when a person has a question and that they want answered, yes, they can come and ask you afterwards, and get information on that. But then if that's information that other members of the public would also like to know, are we supposed to come and record that with our phone, when we're having a personal discussion?
That is an incidental question. I'm glad you brought it up. So if it is an incidental question that we can answer right here,
okay,
we will answer it. It's at the discretion of the chair. So if the question is quick to answer, we can offer it to you. But if it's more of a policy, philosophical thing, then we're silent.
Awesome. So I think that, having a personal discussion, it goes behind closed doors, whereas when a person is asking a question in front of the commissioners, in front of the rest of the public, then it's out in the open. Interaction with the public is extremely important, especially personally to me. I find that exciting, and I love asking questions. I think that that's something that excites generally people from my generation that I know as well, is asking questions. I think it's also frustrating oftentimes for the public because we don't always know what you were thinking in your head, and it's not always clear as to your thoughts. So, for example,
It's not always clear in my head.
For example, I would love to know more about your personal thoughts on why you are spending the ARPA money and just your personal thoughts behind it, as far as quickly as how you've been doing it and behind the scenes. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. So I thank you for the opportunity to have this public comment.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Adam Heikela. I had questions regarding, I'd ask you, Ben, in the in-between there about the insurance that you guys voted on and approved. The change that you read said that you would change and remove the 60-day time period so that it's going to be effective immediately, no longer a wait period. But on the board, when I read it, it also said that you were eliminating the 75-25 requirement where the employees were paying the 75%. And so I did get clarification from Michael that that was part of that, what you guys voted on. And so now I just want everyone to be clarified to know that employees now are going to get 100% coverage. That's what I was told. Correct, Michael?
That's correct.
Correct. Okay. So they're paid. So now, you know, a problem that I have with that is, I mean, Public Act 152, I'm not sure how you guys get around that with Public Act 152, which doesn't allow you to pay 100%, does claim some exemptions that you guys have, so I'm not sure how that is.
Can I interrupt?
No, we're going to let him finish. He's offering his thoughts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I would like clarification on that. I didn't know I could be interrupted if that was part of the new rules
I'm
either.
sorry, but that's not true. What you're saying just isn't true.
What,
Public Act 152, what is Public Act 152?
No.
I'll wait till you get done, then I'll say it. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah,
we good, guys?
Yeah.
I feel personally that we're paying 100% of what the state allows us to.
I know you have strong feelings, but this isn't the time to express them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I was bringing this up, so that we, the public, could get clarification, because I feel that it was kind of skirted in on the public here because of the way that you, Mr. Chairman, read the change. You didn't read the full change. You simply stated on the record, and what you read to the public was that we're going to vote on removing the 60-day, but you didn't complete that you're removing the 75-25, okay? So yes, the state law does, a single person, $5,500 a year is the limit, $11,000 for a couple, and $15,000 for a family. I'm just wondering what you guys are doing to make sure you're in compliance of that. That is all. Because that is the requirements. I'm not sure why I was interrupted and then disrespected like I don't know or have never read Public Act 152 when I've read Public Act 152 as I was the head of my community who was paying 100%, paying insane amount of dollars. Almost twice what, over twice even my community was at the time with Public Act 152, but because they voted with 2/3 of a vote to disregard Public Act 152, they continued to pay through the nose. What I see happening here by saying that we're going to pay as a government entity, that we're going to pay 100% of people's insurance. I don't know anyone in the private sector that gets those benefits. I don't know anyone that gets 100% insurance coverage in the private sector. So what we have here today is a board that has now voted that everyone that gets to work for the government gets to be separate from the private sector, better than the private sector, different than the private sector, and get 100% coverage. That's what we actually heard here, but we didn't hear it because it was skirted by the board by not reading the full change that happened. Not discussing that part of the change that happened at all. There was some wool pulled over people's eyes. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but from what the question I asked and the answer that I was given, that Ben couldn't even give me, the chair, you couldn't even give me the answer to that question. I had to go to your county manager to understand what you voted on, that you couldn't answer for me what you voted on. Okay? I don't think you wanted to give me the answer because you knew what you were doing. You knew that you were skirting that. There's no other way around it. There isn't. I hope that you will answer something or bring this up, Ben, because, I mean, that's, yeah. Not that I'm surprised based on dealing with you guys for the last year.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Hearing none?
Chair, I want to talk about this.
Well, unfortunately, there's no place to talk about this on the agenda.
Make one.
Commissioner Smelker has asked for the floor to speak on an issue. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, Chair recognizes Commissioner Smelker.
Michael, when we voted on that, we voted to pay the full amount of the state, yes, for the first 60 days, not 100% of the insurance.
We are in full compliance with Public Act 152. The county, the way that we're in compliance is that we do not pay more that per individual employee than what the cap allows. We do not. We only pay what the state cap allows. If there's cost beyond that, the employee picks that up. Our policy here, what we just changed is that previously, if you started employment with the county, and you wanted insurance first day, you paid 75% of the cap amount, and the county paid 25% of the cap amount, and the employee picked up then whatever was additional to above the cap. So we will never pay more than what's permitted under the Public Act and those caps. We follow those caps. What Mr. Heikkila was talking about with the 2/3 vote and overruling it, that was an option when the law was passed. The county chose not to do that. There was an 80-20 option that could have been, which would allow effectively more than the caps. We didn't do that. We stuck with and went with the state caps and have ever since day one and have remained in compliance with that. We will remain in compliance, and this policy does not change us or our compliance with Public Act 152. So if that wasn't clear, my apology. If
I thought
that
it was
not made clear,
And then
my apology.
I got one more thing to say.
You know, in efficiency, we did, I believe, if you look at the agenda request form, we tried to lay that out in as much detail as we can. And so, again, my apology if that was not fully clarified. But yes, we make no doubt that we are in full compliance and will remain in compliance with Public Act regarding healthcare caps.
John?
Adam,
No.
I just want to apologize for interrupting him.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to do.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Could have waited.
There are further commissioner comments? Hearing none without objection, the vote will now adjourn. The meeting is adjourned.